Okay. Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a bunch of us here, and we got a returning guest, somebody that we love having on. If you haven't checked it out already, he's done amazing work on David Bowie and Elvis. He killed it, and he's got books out on that. And again, you can check that out on the Occult Rejects if you want. But before we introduce Miguel O'Connor, we're going to introduce the other rejects that we got joining us tonight. And we got Judith DeLune with us. What is going on, Judith? How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. And you can catch me at the Weekly Brunch on YouTube and on X as The Loon.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we got Jin the Ninja. What is going on, Jin? It's nice to have you back. It's been a minute, but I know you're a busy man. So
thank you, boss. Appreciate it, Mr. 93. You can check me out on my show, Threshold Saints, which is an esoteric Hapaborean deep cut show. And I just want to point that word out because I did coin it. So if you've heard it in context to Elisa Liu, I did make up that word. So it's pretty cool. You can follow me at thresholdsaints.substack.com. And my latest episode is episode 91 with David Heimsmith. Well, probably one of the greatest Kabbalists of the 21st century. So him and I have a 2.5 hour conversation about Kabbalah. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, Ike even set it up for him to come on the show. He's coming on pretty soon. We're really looking forward to that. Thank you very much for joining us, Jen. And my man Ethan, what is going on, sir? How are you?
Honored to be here with everyone. This is going to be fantastic. Ethan Indigo Smith on all the social media, writer, author. I appreciate anyone who wants to reach out and check out what I'm doing. And great to be here again.
No, thank you for joining us. Always appreciate what you got to add. And we got the Headless Giant. What is going on, sir? How are you?
How you doing? You can find me at the Headless Giant on X and on YouTube and also on Instagram. Check it out.
Thank you very much. And we got the man himself joining us, friends of the Occult Rejects, Ike Baker. My man, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Please let everybody know what's up with you.
I'm Mike Baker. I have drawings for sale.
Fucking funny, dude. All right. And Web of Mysteries, what is going on, Sam? If you want to let everybody know what's up with you and where they can find your show.
Yeah, you can catch me on Spotify at Web of Mysteries. You can catch me on Instagram at Web of Mysteries. That's Web with 2 B's. And you can catch us on Twitter and TikTok.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Alexander the Great, what is going on, sir? How are you?
What is up, all you beautiful people? My name's Alex. You can catch me at the Testimony Podcast on all platforms. On Instagram, it's the testimony.podcast. All podcast platforms. Catch me everywhere. If you want to see a documentary, come to the YouTube. Thank you for having me on too, by the way, man.
Hell yeah. Definitely for people, listening to the show or watching, his show isn't really that kind of normal compared to everybody else's. A little bit more on like the recovery side. So if you're into that stuff, he has something definitely different to offer than what most people would be on the show for. So go check it out if that's your thing. Thank you for coming on, sir. And finally, to the guest himself, the man of the next hour, how long he hangs out with us, we got Miguel Connor. Please, if people don't know who you are, just let them know what's up.
Take me to the river, drop me in the water. That's all you need to know, man. Let's baptize each other. No, just Miguel Connor. I'm the Gnostic guy, and yeah, that's it. That's all I want to say. Actually, I wanted to say something else. Somebody came on Twitter, told me about their dream. They had a dream with David Bowie, and it describes the ending of my book of David Bowie. Even though the book's not out, nobody's read it and everything. So for your listeners, you guys, if you have any David Bowie dreams, let me know, because he nails it. At the end of the book, I do the big reveal of what's going on with Bowie and what's the cosmic struggle, and I tie it into Elvis and all that. My editor said she cried. So, or a nonfiction. So I wanted to throw that out there.
The muses are leaking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The muses are leaking.
Reality has been bleeding. I think that surprises nobody here, right? Reality ain't what she used to be.
No, bitch is all fucked up. Miguel, how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? When is that book coming out? Because I mean, we had you on for that book probably 6 months ago.
Yeah. Well, obviously, there's so much. There's a million things more since then. I just finished the edit, so it'll be out in the fall. Sometime in the fall, it will be out.
Nice. Yeah, I have someone coming on soon for like Left Hand Path stuff, Dr. Angela Buca, and she was telling me it's like for a new book that was coming out. And I was like, oh, well, I'll email the book company and let them know, so they send me a free book.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's really nice of her. They're like, the book's not coming out until 2027 though, so just remind us then, and we'll send you the book. I was like, oh, geez, all right, okay.
They take time.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's a project. Well, that's the thing. That's another thing too. Why I do like having authors on too, is because I do think it's like a labor of love. So I mean, I would assume there's something behind that. Like you're passionate about what you wrote about, unless like you're a scam artist, and I don't think I have them on. So I try not to. But yeah, it's my money magic book. You know what the magic was? You bought my fucking book. Shit's like, I know you're talking about. But Miguel, if you can, for a lot of people, even a little bit for myself, because I'm not a Gnostic, could you give people just an idea of what Gnosticism even like is or means to you? What's being a Gnostic mean to you, sir? Oh, you're muted there. Bud. Sorry about
There
that.
you go. That was a cat on my lap. I'm gonna blame it on the cat, of course. No, I would say run as far as you can. Don't even get there. It's gonna destroy your life. It's gonna destroy your reality. So that would be my warning. So I mean, if you want the cliff notes, it's an ancient way of inner knowing, as Stephen Heller called it. I would say it's probably pre-Christian. I would even go to say it might be even one of the primordial religions there is. But as we know it, it was a movement that came out during early Christian times. It posited that we are not in the real world. We are cast in a sort of simulation, not a false reality, a fake reality that's been coded to trap us, because each one of us houses a shard of infinity that was stolen by some agent. And our true home is with beyond the stars, reuniting this divine spark with a undivided consciousness. And through the teachings and mysteries of these messengers of light that manifest or sneak into this world, into this matrix, prison planet, whatever you want to call it, we can awaken to our divine destiny, which is to become supremely divine and supremely human and help others wake up. But until then, most people are asleep, drunk, living in a state of ignorance, and being literally fed by these cosmic cattle ranchers that control this universe, often known as the Archons, but your mileage may vary. Call it Ahriman, call it the Watchers, call it whoever you want, the Anunnaki. And we are basically here enslaved in this sort of cosmic, in this slaughterhouse. So, and that's a short form. There's many other features, stressing of a divine feminine, heavy allegorizing of ancient texts, reincarnation. I mean, there's a lot more, but that's what you might say is the elevator pitch, if you would. If I ran into some old lady in an elevator and decided to tell her, hey, you want to know about Gnosticism? Have you heard of your Lord and Savior, the Cosmic Christ?
Ike, not to put you on the spot or anything. Were you into Gnosticism at all?
Oh yeah.
I thought.
I spent a lot of time. So the first couple of videos I made on YouTube, actually, I sent them to Miguel, and he gave me some notes years ago. But
yeah, I can hang. He hangs very well.
Yeah, I got into it through Martinism. What you'll find is that where there's a Martinist chapter, you will typically find an affiliated quote unquote Gnostic church as a sister organization. And so I was brought in through that Gnostic church, and I have all my I was a deacon for 7 years in there, and I was ordained as a priest in that line about 2.5 years ago. But we've kind of since we've held on to the Gnostic component. We study, and Miguel will be very familiar with this, we study primarily Valentinian Gnosticism is kind of our angle there, right? So like Demiurge light, he's just ignorant. He's not like willfully malicious, but
isn't the cosmology of Martinism is insanely Gnostic, right? Adam is guarding this horrible universe and has to go in and rescue it.
Yeah,
Or
well,
did I give away too much?
no. That's, I mean, that's one of the main things is that, yeah, we all were a piece of the cosmic atom who was essentially meant to be a prison guard for the infernal spirits who first said no to God. And then those spirits tempted us, and we shattered like fragments into little tiny pieces of the body of Adam. And reintegration is the key thing. But that all comes from Martina de Pasquale, who was Louis Claude de Saint Martin's teacher. Pasquale kind of says, let's do spiritual warfare. And, he calls spirits in just to exercise them. Hey, come here, get out of here type of thing. And Louis Claude de Saint Martin, probably his brightest student, is just basically like, do we have to do this or can I just pray? And so, but the cosmology stays the same. The method of reintegration is different.
Yeah.
Nice. That is one thing with Gnosticism. I know you guys are kind of like hit on it already. The idea of like this is being a prison planet, kind of in a sense, or it's not a good thing. That is kind of a little bit different than some other ideas, correct? Or am I
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah.
So I even remember like covering Plotinus. I think that was like the difference of opinion that he might have had.
Yeah, he certainly argued with the Gnostics for
Yeah,
sure
that there was
about
no
the nature
evil
of the
nature.
universe.
Yeah. Can you give a little bit? I mean, I guess like well, I guess going on that, and I'm asking this because maybe there might be a little bit of confusion with people who aren't like really experienced with this stuff, and I'm not too sure, I guess, either. Would you look at archons as demons?
I guess you could. I mean, they are in control of the universe, so they would be much more powerful than demons. I mean, they control fate. They control time. Yeah, I mean, William Burroughs and David Bowie thought time was the worst archon there could be. He was a real archon. The Gnostics would certainly agree, and they control our minds. They do impose on us a Wetiko or a mind parasite that controls us and makes us do all the bad decisions and creates a false sense of who we are. Of course, that's why self-knowledge is so important to Gnosticism. So they're definitely far more powerful, if you would, than demons. Now, later on, as history started to unfold, whatever, the Demiurge, who they called Yaldabaoth, often associated him with the god of the Hebrew Bible, but they associated him with Kronos and Saturn and really any creator god. I mean, the Gnostics were like, this universe sucks, we need to talk to the CEO. We need to figure out, we need new middle management. So they disdained all of these gods pretty much, or at least thought that they were just botching it up. And later on, the Demiurge got replaced by Satan. The Cathar simply calls Satan the king of this world, and he was running this world, and only Jesus could, and other apostles of light could break his hold on this world and help us, release us and awaken us to that. So, yeah, it's bad, man. It's really bad down here. Origen, the church father, always said, this is the highest point of hell, and the Gnostics would agree. And how could you not say, I mean, this has to be hell. I mean, this is a world of temporality. This is a world where somebody created the platypus and made the Big Bang Theory a hit. This is the world where men have nipples. It makes no sense. And it's up to us to sort of righten the ship, if you would, restore it. And the Gnostics had different views. Some said, well, we can restore this universe. Others said, no, let's just wake up and get the hell out of Dodge. So it depended. It really depended on their views. Like the Valentinians were a little bit softer. They were in Rome. They didn't see the Demiurge of this sort of idiot god. They saw him more of just an ignorant god who was part of the eternal process. They were Neo-Pythagorean, and they thought, influenced by Stoicism, so this is the way the universe goes, and then it just goes back to the source, and then it comes back. It's fine. Everything's fine. So, and I mean, you see that. I mean, Plotinus had nasty things to say about the human body because it fails us. And Plato and Socrates was the one who said, maybe we are in Hades. Maybe that's the starting point. and the body is a tomb. So the Gnostics weren't doing anything radical. They were dialing it up to 11, but they were looking around and said, oh, look at the story of the Anunnaki. Oh, look at the behavior of the Watchers. Oh, look how mature the Olympians are. Oh, look at Ahriman running around causing, they were just looking at all the myths, the Egyptian myths. Oh, look at Apophis. All Apophis needs is one good day to defeat Ra, and it can destroy the entire universe. So the Gnostics were just empiricists, and they were looking at the myths and saying, hey, everybody, let's get our shit together and start with this. We are the world and nature is good and we'll make the best of it and all that bullshit, which is where we are today as the human race. It hasn't worked out, has it?
No.
You
No,
got me.
I don't.
Just had some coffee, so I'm like ready
I know,
to go.
I think you're onto something there. Another thing that a lot of people like to whitewash because it's comforting to them and doesn't challenge any of the major assumptions is that the Hermetic texts and the Neoplatonic texts are all just as
very dark.
They're very
Evil
dark,
spirit.
and they talk about how the soul is almost like the soul. The Corpus Hermeticum 13 says that the soul is tormented, that there are tormentors that live in our spiritual vehicle that we need to purify through virtue and through hieratic rites. That's essentially Neoplatonism. They say the same thing. I think the only point they disagree on is that obviously, right, they don't equate the demiurgos with Satan, and I think that was Plotinus's probably one of his main gripes, because he lived basically like a Gnostic. He hated, right? What the Porphyry starts his life of Plotinus. It seemed that Plotinus was ashamed to be in a body.
He was cranky, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just about like, no, God's not evil. But the thing is, the point that Miguel, has made is that we're not necessarily talking about the highest God.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, as much as I say that, the Gnostics were probably some of the most poetic and happy texts you could read, because they're very Lovecraftian, full of violence and rape and giant monsters who are indestructible. But then there's this joy, because they always said, look, Sophia's rescue operations happening. We're going to win. Every human is 1,000 times bigger than any Archon, because we house divinity. We have skills. It's kind of like the AI human argument, because the Archons do act like algorithms, because their purpose is to trap and feed, very mechanistic, at the best their lizard brain. But we are superior, and when you wake up, you're going to win and everything's going to be all right. So, and there are apocalypses. I mean, people have to remember, an apocalypse was always considered really good news, whether it's the apocalypse of John or anything, because the divine is just revealing everything, alpha to omega, and say, this is the map of the universe. Like alcoholic, you can't fix it until you realize how bad it is. What's the old saying in AA? How do you get from the bottom of a pit? Stop digging.
Yeah.
So this is how we get out, and this is the map to get out, and everything's going to be fine. And that's Plotinus hated that, because he hated the idea of revelation, because he thought, the gods made the universe fine. It's perfect. All our moralizing and it's not going to change it. It's fine. Everything's going to be all right. And he was angry because the idea of personal revelation, that the gods would continue to reveal their plans here down in history, was just ridiculous. But the Gnostics kept doing it, and obviously the Christians kept doing it.
So, Miguel, I had a question. Looking into the literature, I find a bunch of stuff about the aeons. And so you've got the aeons and the archons. Now, what's the difference between the aeons and archons?
You can say the aeons are the personhoods or capacities of the undivided unconscious. They would often call the undivided unconscious, they call them the One. They leaned on Plato, although I think their mythology is close. It's Egyptian. The Gnostics for sure are an Egyptian religion. They are continuation of the Egyptian mysteries. But so they would often call the ultimate divine also a serpent. like a tomb, or they would call it the invisible spirit, or the Valentinians called it depth and silence, the great mother and father. So what happens is that consciousness is still, and they do this in Hinduism. Suddenly consciousness becomes aware and says, oh, who am I? And every time suddenly this other being, as soon as you say, who am I? This being appears. In Hinduism, you would call it Prakriti or Shakti. It answers the question. And every time consciousness asks, what am I? It creates these capacities that become beings that are the aeons. So they're sort of the capacities of the mind of God, eternity, goodness, awareness. And this creates what the Gnostics would call the pleroma, or the eternal realm, this sort of, eternal lattice of these beings called aeons that become, again, they're kingdoms, they're personhoods, and they're elements of time. They're like its own little monads running around. And what happens, at least according to the Sethians and others, that one of the aeons, wisdom, Sophia, rebels, or she commits an infraction. She breaks away, falls into the emptiness of chaos, and through her sorrow, she gives birth to the universe and gives birth to the demiurge. And that's how we get into this mess, because this demiurge, or child, steals her energy and takes it to create his own kingdom, which is a reflection of the pleroma, if you would. And that's what we have now. And again, the Gnostics were not like just some emos making stuff up in some cafe in Alexandria. They looked at all the great myths. Plato called the fall of the soul was female. There's the ancient myths of Cybele, who rebels against heaven and falls. They were looking at the Hebrew myths of the Shekinah, who gets lost in this world. I mean, Isis, who is it? Inanna. They were looking at the myths, and there's always this female divine figure, the soul, the mother goddess, who falls into this world and goes on an adventure into the material world. But to them, it was Sophia. And again, they dialed it up to 11. So I hope that answers your question.
Dialed it up to 11. Anybody else have any questions? Or Hellas, you have any more? You want to follow up? Right now?
I actually have one, if you don't mind, Nick.
We'll get a Web of Mysteries next.
Miguel, so Headless brought up this idea of the aeons, and I have this framework called the Aeon of the Daughter, which I've been discussing on this show and other shows on my show, obviously. I just wanted to know what you think of the Nuria, the daughter figure, or and her kind of configuration in the Epinoia, if you're familiar with that text, with Zoe and Seth as well. So the aeons appear in that text in a tripartite manner. And I found this to be replicated, like you mentioned, Hinduism. Well, there is this idea, obviously, of children and multiplicity, depending on how you understand the Puranas and later the Tantras. So, I really mean, like, how can you respond to this text that is sort of saying that we're moving into like a new Yuga or a new Kalpa or a new Aeon?
What text is that?
Well, the Epinoia of Nuria. It kind of posits her.
Oh, the thought of Nuria. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I mean, Nuria, I've done presentations on her, and she's my favorite heroine. She is probably based on Nema, or this ancient figure in Hebrew lore, who actually is one of the few non-angelic beings that can fight the Watchers and the Nephilim. And but she's also very rebellious, often associated with the wife of Noah. Even in Islamic lore, Mandean lore, she's just always, she's very complex. The Zohar has her mating with Asmodeus and all that. So very multifaceted being. And she is given, you might say, the aeons, at least in the hypostasis of the archons, is given sort of a revelation how the archons and the demiurge will be defeated. So the thought of Nuria is kind of short. So it sort of gives us, again, this revelatory exposition, but I think that text actually associates her more with Sophia. But to the Gnostics, all these divine feminine figures, Mary Magdalene, Eve, Barbelo, Prunicus, Ellen of Tyre, we're basically all the manifestation of the Divine Mother, avatars of the Divine Mother on this world.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Sam, real quick, did you want to get something in before we go back to Headless, please?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that all these perspectives, like the perspective that y'all have is very interesting. I've never heard of Gnosticism before this, so this is really cool. But I do have to say, as a conspiracy platypus, what did the platypus do? Because you brought up the platypus earlier.
It's just an odd creature. Yeah, I mean, the one thing Gnostic texts are, they are full of parody and satire and all that and puns. So they're sort of having fun, and they like throwing weird koans. So that's what it really is. And you have heard of Gnosticism. I mean, if you've seen The Matrix or The Truman Show, or if you've watched the series Severance, I mean, it is soaked in there. If you've read Philip K. Dick or William Burroughs or Herman Melville or many of these cats, William Blake, hugely influenced by Gnostic thought. So you've definitely heard of it here and there. And I could go even further. The Gospel of John was first read and studied by the Gnostics, and Paul, as we're learning, has been heavily redacted. But when you start seeing Paul in his original non-edited form, he is talking about, what is he talking about? The rulers of this age. Ruler in Greek is archon. The archons of this age, the god of this age, the powers and principalities. So it seemed we've been taught he's talking about the Romans, and he might have, because the Romans, as above, so below. The Romans were the servants of the archons on this world. But he is talking about these cosmic beings, and there's this sort of alien god or person, this trickster named Jesus, that has to come down and break their laws and break their yoke to save us. So you've definitely been familiar with Gnosticism, but a veil has been placed over you and all of us.
I was actually going to bring up Paul and his it seems like he was really into the heart chariot, what's that called? The visions that he had, the Merkaba mysticism, right? And so it seems like there was a big influence of Merkaba mysticism in the works of Paul, and you see that in his depictions of heavenly Jesus as being this sort of figure outside of time and space, sort of coming from these different aethers, coming down to the earth and doing that stuff. How much of an influence do you think Merkaba mysticism had on Gnosticism, or Gnosticism had on Merkaba mysticism?
It's always hard to say, because remember, I mean, these cats were operating in Alexandria, which was this hotbed of mysticism where the Neoplatonists and the Hermeticists and the alchemists and the Gnostics were all interacting. So it's hard to say who starts where and whatever. I mean, you look at, the great alchemist Zosimos of Panopolis, and you look at his mythology, and it could come out of a Gnostic text, again, fallen angels taking over the world. But then you look at Gnostic texts, and they're sort of talking about alchemy. So they're always interacting, rubbing shoulders, borrowing from each other. But I think most even sober scholars are realizing that the Gnostics, like the Hermeticists and probably Neoplatonists, were an extension of the Egyptian mysteries that were simply transferred and packaged in a Greco-Roman time. So that's what we have. And again, this gnosis, as the Gnostics called sacred information, it's primordial, it's timeless. It comes probably thousands, maybe 10,000s of years ago. But again, it got transferred in Egypt to this group. I always like to call the people in Alexandria spiritual off-worlders, because and most times, the mystics, even today, you're just passively sitting there. Oh, God comes to me, tell me what to do, God. They were like, no, we are from the Egyptian thing. In fact, we're going to take it one step. We're not going to wait till we die, even though it's the same roadmap in the afterlife. We're going to do it while we're alive. We're going to take these flights, and we're going to go in, and we're going to record what we see, encounter these archons, use the passwords or prayers so they don't destroy us and trap us in some dimension, and try to go all the way to the one and experience and gain knowledge and bring that healing and that those techniques and back to this world to help others. And Paul obviously was part of it. He was what, in the third heaven or something like that. So it's always that's why I think they're so fascinating, because they were aggressive. They were like, screw this, we're going to God. We're not going to wait for God to come to us. And Plotinus himself, he went to the one. So, he's one of those few figures in time. He went, past the world of ideas. Can you imagine? He's like, oh, look, there's the ideal form of a chair. Oh, look, there's an ideal form of a dildo. There's an ideal form of a cat. And he's like, no, I'm going beyond what nobody can go. And I'm going to stand in front of the undivided consciousness, and whoa, something that a feat that very few in all of the history of humanity has done.
Yeah. Yeah, and and that was the big thing for Plotinus. He really did believe that he was uniting with an exogenous transcendent one, whereas the later Neoplatonists believed that they were only uniting with the one that was in their soul, the one in the soul. But not to split hairs or anything, but I think it's worth pointing out in addressing this common word Merkaba, meaning chariot. There is so the Merkaba tradition, as we find it, is a product of Hellenized Judaism, and it's the literature is called the Hekalot literature, and it's based on the stratification of the heavenly palaces. But the Merkaba mystics, the rabbis that were doing this, they descended. They descended. It was a chthonic journey, and also the Merkaba itself was actually the throne of God. It wasn't like a chariot that they rode. They considered it the chariot throne of God that Ezekiel saw in the vision. And the journey was to go all the way down into the center of the earth until we reach the throne of God. But that gets kind of conflated with Plato's idea of the Iamblichus, all those guys, the soul vehicle in the Phaedrus. Plato gives us the charioteer analogy, and he's going up into the celestial vault. So it's kind of like, it's the same thing between, for me, it's similar, like Goetia, Theurgia. It's a matter of direction. It's a matter of intentionality. And the last thing I'll point out is that we do have like those Orphic gold tablets. That are, like the Petilia tablet that is doing exactly what Miguel said, is that, and they were totem passes, so that when the initiate died, they would have this little golden lamellae, either hung around their neck or their wrists. And it said, this is how you get past what they would have called genealogic gods. And even in theurgy, they believed that there was a whole class of gods that are called genealogic, mean they move you towards generation. They don't want you to leave. Their job is to hold you in place. And things like the Petilia tablet and a lot of the Gnostic stuff, the Ophites were another, they practiced ascent, they have all those interesting diagrams. But there were certain codes and words and things that you had to know. But I think it all plays into what Miguel was saying before about waking up. Because the entirety, all of the Platonic tradition understood that the souls, the whole purpose of philosophy, the whole purpose of theurgy, the whole purpose of theoria was to remember. Meaning the soul comes down here and it's like it's dead. It's like it's asleep. It's like it has drank something that made it forget. And the whole job is to remember. Now, here's the thing. It's not a theoretical, intellectual remembering, right? Like a lot of us will say, yeah, I'm one and I'm in God and we're no. That's not what we're talking about. So fucking check yourself. What we're talking about is an actual experiential moment where you go lucid in the nightmare of life. And that's what we call gnosis.
Plato did say all learning is remembering, but also too, like, I mean, in a lot of these rituals, you do go, it's not like you just go up to the heavens, which is dangerous enough, but you have to go down to hell with the mystery religions. You got to get, it's the old shamanistic thing where the shaman gets his body torn apart. Osiris was probably the first shaman, and you go down to Hades and you meet all these demons and they cut you up and beat the crap out of you. And if you can purify yourself, then you start going to heaven. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Merkabah Jews, why they, God was at the center of the earth.
To your point earlier, that the fact that you believe that Gnosticism, and I agree with you, comes from the ancient Egyptian temple practices and that wisdom tradition, or at least that's the oldest on the historical record that we have. Their entire system of ontology, metaphysics, it's all based on the sun entering the underworld,
right,
and bringing light there. And then every night it had to do battle with Apep to make sure that everything wasn't swallowed up into oblivion before it came over the eastern horizon again. So they are two ends of one spectrum. And our sort of mutual friend, Danny Newman, who I did a panel here with him on Platonism, he would say that in a lot of ways, and he said this to me before, and he wouldn't mind me quoting him. He said, in a lot of ways, the descent is the ascent. They're all part of the same circuit.
Yeah, and I heard you met Tamara. Ronnie told me.
Yeah, for the first
like I
time.
said, reality is bleeding.
Yeah, for the first time. That was insane. Yeah.
I have a question about the descent idea, and moreover the various different groups of Gnostics and various different streams of thought within the groups that essentially rejecting the material and rejecting dogma, and even the dogma of morality, which I think would be a really good approach for people that are in that place. And I maybe not for everyone. And I wonder, with that said, if that kind of might have influenced and perverted certain monotheistic ideas and or cultish ideas that in modernity, essentially, that have been kind of, this perversion of the rejection of morality and this perversion of what could be this developmental ideas pertaining to Gnosticism, but might have been flipped and twisted into.
I love how Ethan's doing a great job tiptoeing around the Frankians and the Sabbateans.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to.
They're Gnostic, yes, they are Gnostic. So
okay, it's been on the tip of my pituitary gland, and I was trying to verbalize it. Thank you, Miguel. So you already
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for people to understand. It's like when I tell people Gnosticism is not a religion, it's a metaphysical orientation, as April DeConnick said, and a spiritual modality, like shamanism. There's no church of shamanism or exorcism, right? These are modalities that fit into a religion. Yeah, they have their values, they have their mythology. So the morality part is not something that the shaman is going to really worry about. He's there for the tribe, he's there for the transcendence, he's there to heal, and that usually good morality comes with it. So that's why the Gnostics had so many different manifestations. So of course there is the manifestation in Egypt with the Simonians, Borverites, Carpocratians, who adopted the sexual magic and other more wild parts of shamanism, and that of course then devolved, and as we know them, with these sort of antinomian movements, and that's what they did. But you had movements like the Valentinians, who were just more, they attached themselves to the rising church, and they seemed to adopt some of the values and so forth. But it still is Gnosticism. I mean, the danger is never going to be what the Gnostics were doing, because the Gnostics were never broke any Roman laws, and they were always seen as upstanding citizens. Plotinus saw them as friends. They're always considered, good, productive, but there were certainly some antinomian strains, even in the Persian Empire and so forth. And these, it's always what works for you and what type of Gnostic lodge or dispensation do you want to adopt? Do you think Sufism works for you? Do you like sex magic? Do you just like the more Hellenistic contemplation? And that just appeared throughout history, if you would. But the real danger with the Gnostics is always going to be their ideology and what they propose, which is, again, individualism, skipping over organizations and institutions for a direct experience, this sort of anarchic spirit. I mean, anarchism just means without archons, where, you know, all the governments and institutions of the world are seen as frauds. Some Gnostics, you know, as we're talking about, took it really, really, really intense. And of course, these strains, and even as I tell people, it's a metaphysical orientation. And if you don't get that, that's fine. James Lindsay calls them parasites. That guy doesn't know anything about Gnosticism. But you can just simply say that everything casts a shadow, as Jung would say. Everything casts a shadow. Jesus, Islam, we all cast a shadow. And as Jung said, the bigger the light, the bigger the shadow. So, of course, there were some, you might say, Gnostic movements that took this power, this ancient primordial power, which is very powerful because, as I was saying, it goes way back. It strikes at human consciousness and the nature of reality, and it can go wrong. And some examples are Scientology. Who was what's the other? Who's the guys who were chasing the comet in the black tennis shoes? I forget.
Oh God, Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
That's you could say that's a Gnostic movement. I mean, there are many others. In fact, you could say it's always hard for me to. It's not hard for me to express because shit happens, but the CIA and its MK Ultra might have come from Jung, because Alan Dulles tricked Jung into giving him a lot of his ideas on the nature of consciousness and human behavior and all that. And Alan Dulles was like, this stuff is amazing. And you know what happened with that, you know? Straight to the veins of the CIA. So everything casts a shadow, and that's just the way it is. I mean, Gnosticism, Christianity, anything.
Well, it seems that some of the most dangerous concepts throughout all of history has been separating the consciousness from the physical world, right? Because once you've done that for your followers and for the people who, you know, are adherents, you might be able to inject other things. So I think the liminal state must be protected. People have to be able to experience the liminal state for themselves and not be influenced in that journey from one region to the other, because it's within that liminal influence that a lot of people, you know, usually take advantage of others.
Yeah. Weaponized Gnosticism is very powerful. I mean, if you wanted to make a case that the Bolsheviks and the Nazis were quasi-Gnostics, I'd say, yeah, I'll give it to you. But it's still, again, it's a partial, corrupted, you know, like the Heaven's Gate. The Gnostics weren't spiritual bypassers. They weren't like, we're getting out of this world and F you and ha 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 ha. See, you know, so long and thanks for the fish kind of people.
They want to last too long.
They were like, you know, oh, we woke up. We're Christian bodhisattvas. We need to help our brothers and sisters in this world to wake up. Until everybody gets out, nobody gets out. So
wait, so they didn't have matching tracksuits?
Nike shoes too.
Do you mind if I jump in? I just want.
And I don't want to be a Gnostic anymore. I need the tracksuit.
Sorry, I just made some Kool-Aid for you, Ike. Come on, take some before you go.
There is a clear like parallel to certain kinds of Buddhist ideas, and I don't just mean like Greco-Buddhist or Hellenistic Buddhism. I mean like more tantric and Vajrayana ideas. There's a clear Gnostic parallels, and I'm glad that we're individuating Gnosticism to its like various schools rather than saying it like the James Lindsay way. So I think that was great, Miguel, that you differentiated that, because that is a common problem. Like I would consider myself a Gnostic, at least intellectually. I might be a Buddhist, like as I follow that religion, and yes, there are definitely Gnostic elements, particularly in Tantra. But even more broadly, intellectually, I find myself very enamored with Gnosticism as an approach, as you were saying. And there's an idea that David has that actually klipas can actually be seen as transparent. So, like even in the antinomian practices of the Frankists and the Sabbateans, it's like the West was searching for its sort of non-dual gnosis, that it kind of like, I'm sure it survived in certain parts, but it didn't seem to survive in like the greater body as it did in like Tibet and India. So I think that maybe that those groups were also looking for like the non-dual ideas, like the ideas that like maybe it's not just the carnal ground. Maybe we also live on this like world of the garden, or maybe we live on both places at the same time, which is a very Buddhist idea, right? Like samsara and nirvana exist at the
Right.
same time, and that is what is non-dual about the world, rather than committing transgressive action. But of
No.
course, you can't find that out unless you kind of like go down that intellectual road. I'm not justifying it in any way. I don't like that stuff, but I'm just saying I can understand it from a Gnostic perspective, why you'd want to explore the antinomian angle, especially because of like Kenneth Grant. And like, obviously his whole idea is that we are in the tunnels of Set. And my whole idea of the Aeon of the Daughter is like, she's the princess of breaking Klippa. So we are broken out of the tunnels of Set, but what is in front of us? Well, it's a burning ground. So it's up to us to make of it like what we can. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know
no,
that was
really
all
well
over,
said.
but yeah, no.
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, it's really well said. In fact, I'll even go further. Do you guys know who the patron god of Charles Manson was?
No.
I should know that.
Abraxas.
Oh,
He was a devotee of Abraxas, so I don't know how much Gnostic you can get that. You really need to read Tom O'Neill's Chaos and these speeches he gives to Charles Manson. I'm like, oh my God, this could come out of the Nag Hammadi Lagar. You know, what a son of a gun he is. But yeah, I mean, there without a doubt, Buddhism and Gnosticism are cousins. And the upcoming David Bowie book, I have a whole chapter compared, but others have done it. Stephen Holler and others. They're yeah, very much the same type of worldview, if you would, especially in their primordial forms. I always love the story, and I think it's Buddhism of Mahabrahma, that when everything resets, you have the first god that comes out of the reset. His name is Mahabrahma, and he appears, and he's the first being to appear in this cycle, and he goes, oh, I am the true God. There is no God but me, like the God of the Old Testament. And he starts ruling every, new incarnation. He forgets what he was. And that's the key with Gnosticism, as Ike was saying, is the forgetting is the problem. To Gnosticism, the greatest sin is ignorance. The Gospel of Philip says the mother of all evil is ignorance, because as humans, when we become conscious, and how we get there is different for everybody. Some might be the left-hand path, the right-hand path, who knows? But a conscious human by default will be a good human. He will be a good part of society, probably might be killed by society, but he will be a individuated individual. Like Jung said, the opposite of hate is not, the opposite of love is not hate, it's power. And that's, I think, the great dichotomy that you have, because a conscious human being understands that this power in this world is fleeting. And as Jung further said, we didn't come to this world to be good, we came to be whole. A whole human being has integrated his shadow, has understood his sin, has brought it all together, and he's, I guess, closer to Nietzsche's Uberman. But this is, we might say, is a good person. Morality changes, ethics changes, and that it is. But I agree, we come here to be whole and to vanquish all the ignorance of not this life, but our past lives too.
So that's a great point, Miguel. And I just want to say, maybe build on that, is that I agree with, actually, and Buddhism and Dharma, especially Tantric Dharma, agrees with that, especially the idea that Ike brought up about ignorance being one of the greatest sins. Now, we have 5 main sins, Klesha Maras, but ignorance is certainly the most pernicious of them. But I think the idea that Buddhism actually offers Gnosticism, even the antinomian kinds, is this idea of bodhicitta. And this idea of loving kindness, which obviously appears in Kabbalah, Hasidic Kabbalah especially as well, because Hesed refers to that Sephira, which is the Sephira of loving kindness, obviously. And so I think that the idea of moving forward through the Aeon in a loving kindness framework is kind of a radical, and I don't mean loving kindness framework as in like some progressive, like kumbaya, we're all going to hold hands and just, and like roll each other's blunts and all that. But I'm just mean like maybe there is a way to like move forward in discourse. So to bring up that a very important thing, like you were talking about the inner discourse, we would call that the dialogue with the inner guru in Tantra. And it's interesting because all Tantras are actually written in discourse as well. They're written with it's obviously in Buddhism, we don't call it the Shakti, but you can say it's like the Shakti and the Bhairava. And it's carried over through Indian Tantra and Buddhist Tantra as well. It's always written in dialogue with the deity and his consort. So that is really interesting to me, actually. So I did learn something today, Ike, about Hellenistic things. So for the next time.
Yeah, well, and I'll throw some Christianity, straight, canonical gospel Christianity into the mix. A lot of people have Christianity backwards. They think that it's about not sinning, like ever. In reality, if you can't sin, you cannot be redeemed. In other words, you cannot be made whole. And so you see this constantly, and it's very easy for people who come from I would say, primarily evangelical background. Again, I don't mean to squash your algorithm here, but I'm fond of saying you can't spell evangelical without evil. But I mean, in the type of Christian exegesis that we're talking about, the fall is synonymous with this idea of like, redemption. We've called it reintegration. We've called it wholeness. We've called it ascent. We've called it union, becoming awake. But there's parts in the Gospels, the canonical Gospels, where Jesus is asked by rabbis that have seen him, go to the synagogue and speak on Scripture with them. They know him to be, well versed, and they said, "Why are you hanging out with all these dirtbags?" And he basically says, like, look, well people don't need a doctor. Sick people need a doctor. And then, of course, there's the whole parable of the prodigal son, that he talks about. So it's not the whole thing. If you look all the way back at the biblical Genesis, Adam and Eve are cast out from the Garden of Eden because they eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and of evil. Duality. They're no longer these kind of like pristine prudes who are kept safe from the privation of God, the privation of the Creator. They have to descend and experience and know evil. They have to know evil in order to be able to become whole and make that ascent. And that's what Christianity is all about.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I mean, what does Paul say? Everything's permissible, but not everything is good. He's saying, yeah, you go, you do you. Later, Augustine read that and said, do what thy will. And then Crowley took that even further and developed that even further.
Yeah, that's for years, not anymore, but for years, one of my favorite quotes by Augustine was, "Make me good, God, but not yet."
Yes, he wasn't ready to give up women.
That was Saint Augustine. Can you
Saint Augustine of Hippo? He was
Yes.
he was a church father and early commentator on Orthodox scripture, Orthodox interpretation.
An ex-Gnostic too, a Gnostic turncoat. Although
he
didn't put a lot of his ideas, his Neoplatonist Gnostic ideas, into Catholicism.
Yeah, and he talks about how theurgy, like the Neoplatonic theurgy, is demonic. He's quite interesting.
Yeah. But then stuff like Provatio Bono, evil is the lack of good. I'm like, you stole that from Plotinus.
Well, he always had the rumors about him being a Manichaean, right? And so it kind of makes sense that he was very dualistic. And like, I'm not saying that, again, to bring up, yes, that obviously dualism existed as a tradition, more so in the Hellenistic kind of tradition, and like the schools and thinking of it. But in Buddhism, we would say dualism is one of the greatest poisons. But it's not that dualism itself is like a negative. You have to be able to use dualism like we exist in reality. We have to speak to each other. So you can't be so non-dual that you're like way out there, like on mushrooms or whatever, like flying on the aether wave. Like, no, but you have to be practical. Like you have to be in dialogue. So you can't do it on extremes. So I think that's interesting.
I think
Yeah.
it's interesting the separation between the Hellenistic world who believed in aletheia, which was like the rejection of the cup that made you forget in the underworld, right? Letha was the cup that made you forget, and for Christians, it was the thing that made you sort of remember or know that became the evil thing. So it's a real interesting dichotomy between the two.
All learning is remembering, that's for sure. And I mean, dualism, I mean, I always worry. I don't know how they deal it with the East, but you have to be careful with the term, because the term was really originated in the Christian universities in the medieval times as a cudgel against the Cathars. It was a concept in the West that was using it. And of course, it was one of those, physician heal thyself kind of thing, because they were going, look at these Cathars and light and darkness and this and that. But the church was doing the same stuff, but it was used against them. But so I it's a term that I try to avoid if I can. I mean, even Zoroastrianism is much more elegant than eat bad Ahriman, good Ahura Mazda. So
No, that's absolutely fair, Miguel. It's just because in Buddhism, the idea of dualism, that is like how they translated that sort of like differentiation. And so we would say we're a non-dual tradition. So it's like very important for us. But I agree, and I've been learning lately to be more flexible and like not always be so dogmatic about it. Like, we have to exist in like some sort of plane of agreed upon material existence, right? So there's just no way to get around it, that duality exists, dualism at least exists in some way. And so even if we believe it's not real, for me, what it means is more that like psychic visions, like dreams, like all that stuff, like a lot of metaphysical people take that as like that is absolute reality. Or some people who are materialists take materialism, science as absolute reality. I actually take neither of those things as absolute reality. I say that's relatively real. So it's as real as we choose it to be. And I choose to like have higher aspirations. And that's, for me, that's sort of what reality is. It's like me moving forward through time and space and like taking charge of my own will and deciding like, and the other Aeonic ideals, such as love and life. So for me, that's sort of how I navigate it. But, for other people, that's going to be different.
for sure.
One thing I did want to ask you, Miguel, what's your thoughts on the Gospel of Mary?
It's a great gospel. I mean, Mary Magdalene obviously is an extremely important figure, a leader. She is pretty much one of the main incarnations of Sophia, just as Jesus is the Logos, and she is the Sophia here in the Hierogamos down here on earth. And texts like the Gospel of Mary, Pistis Sophia, and others put her as the main figure next to Jesus. There's a text called Dialogue with the Savior, and Jesus says, "You, Mary, you understand the all." In other words, she's the woman or the person who has complete understanding of the universe and of the structure of reality. So very important figure in Gnostic dispensations, that's for sure. Extremely important figure. You might say she's one of the Gnostic revealers that comes to wake us up. And although I went on a rant the other day because I was just I'm getting at an age where I just don't have any F's to give. But so I went on this rant about Gnosticism not being feminist, not being lovey-dovey, that it's hardcore stuff. Yeah. And I said it's not feminist at all. It is a spiritual meritocracy. It's like you got gnosis, get in, loser. But if you look at the Gnostics, it has more women founders of their sects probably than any other group. I counted like 10 or 15. I mean, the Mandeans were founded by a woman. The Nassenes, the snake worshiping Gnostics, over and over. Mary Magdalene, Ellen of Tyre. You have these women who are founders of their own movements that eventually got squashed, but it has more chick leaders than really any other group. So, but again, it's not feminist. It's not because they were women. It's because Gnosticism believed in seeing your inner spark and letting that dictate where you should, where you should lead or whatever, be, the head of the group, share your information. So it didn't matter what you looked outside.
Well, the oracular tradition was, almost entirely feminine. All of the oracles that were preaching the words from the gods all came through women. So,
yeah, the Sibyls and the Oracle of Delphi and all that. That was just women being trapped in a patriarchal society. But
I'm
yeah,
just gonna talk some shit until we get out of here. Sam, you had something. I see you got your hand up over there. Don't want to leave you hanging there, buddy.
Yeah, you brought up Mary Magdalene. She's, if I'm not mistaken, isn't she also known as Mary the Jewess in early alchemical works? She's also the mother of pretty much the double boiler, and also married to Mary Magdalene while she was the devout follower of Christ, probably more devout than the actual apostles. She was more. There's a theory that she married. So the Knights Templars believe that she married Jesus and actually had a child by Jesus. I don't really partake to that. Mostly, but I can see where they draw the line. So
No, I say they definitely believe that. They were talking about that at Cosmic Summit.
yeah, I can definitely I can understand why they would think that, because during the burial of Jesus, by Jewish law they would have to anoint the body. Well, the only people that would typically anoint the body would be the mother, the sister, or the wife. Well, it talks about Mary, his mother, anointing it, but it also says that how Mary the Magdalene was the first one to actually be there at the grave and everything. More than likely, she also anointed his body. I don't remember if that is blatantly stated in the Bible, but if she did anoint the body, yeah, I have, like, how I've come to think, not think, but through my research and everything. If that is the case that she did anoint his body, more than likely they were married, just by Jewish law.
yeah, for sure. I mean, she is beyond the anointing. You have, of course, she's the first one that Jesus appears to her. The wedding of Cana, that's obviously, as even scholars are saying, that's the wedding of Jesus and Mary. It's pretty obvious when you see it, and some have translated the idea of water to wine wasn't actually Jesus, wanting to get his party going. It was a term for consummating the marriage. There's the water and the blood, the hymen. So the mother Mary is like, you guys gotta get this going, or the marriage, it won't. You got to do this as soon as possible because it's sacred. And Jesus is like, no, man, I want to party with the guys for a little. It's not my time. But he said, all right, I will do it. So over and over, you see it. I mean, the Gospel of Philip always says he calls Mary his consort, and koinonos in Greek, although koinonos it doesn't exactly mean romantic. It just means, stands next to him. And he does say that they often used to kiss on the mouth. Now, in ancient times, a kiss was a transference of sacred information. So it is sort of ambiguous, but you could make the case of it. And early Christianity did it. Even before medieval times, there were already 4th, 5th, 6th century, there were already novelizations of Jesus and Mary being together. And some of them were pretty rated R, even rated X. I don't even want to go into some of them. But so that happened. But again, I mean, you could see it. This is the hierogamos. This is the material expression of the Logos and Sophia, the divine feminine and masculine, the anima, something that's so important for the collective psyche of humanity. For a civilization, gods had to be married, just as humans had to be married. And then in the Middle Ages, it's got very romantic. And yes, the Cathars obviously lean towards Mary. Knights Templar, most of their churches are consecrated to Mary Magdalene. Their iconography, some are starting to notice, it's full of divine feminine imagery. So it's all there. It's all been suppressed, but it just keeps coming out, it keeps coming out.
You know, I don't know. Have you heard? Do you know who Timothy Hogan is or Scott Wolter? Miguel?
Yeah.
Have you heard them talking about supposedly like they said that when I saw them at Cosmic Summit, they said that they have an ark in Jesus's bones and Mary's bones. I think a
Yeah,
child. That's what he said. Yeah, from breaking some cipher.
Oh wow. Yeah.
What do you think like that would do if that was even true? Do you think that would prove Gnosticism more, or like would that fuck up shit? You think?
No, I don't think so. Why would it change anything? So
Well, it would change. Oh, well, it could change Catholicism and Christianity.
yeah. Maybe Christianity, but I would certainly wouldn't change anything about Gnosticism.
Oh yeah, that's. Yeah, I wasn't meaning. Yeah, I was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know it would change anything about Christianity. I think most Christians probably know deep down inside that they probably might have been a couple. Mormonism certainly doesn't have a problem seeing them as married.
Was she from a rich family?
I would say, yeah, it seems that. I mean, the Bible does talk about how Jesus was supported by
I see. I was
wealthy women. Yeah, that women were funding his.
Bankrolled his little operation.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I was going to ask that.
He didn't invest in crypto or anything like that. Yeah.
That's funny. Wasn't there also the reason I got into this part is because I have heard like some people may think it's kind of like well, the whole thing with Mary and sin and Jesus. Isn't that a little bit different than like how it's kind of looked at? If you like, if you were to have that book, I guess the Gospel of Mary was in the Bible, it would kind of maybe change the idea that people look at sin. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, it does come. Sin is ignorance. It has a different take. Only your thoughts make sin. So it talks about keeping your thoughts straight, and then Mary talks about a vision. She has to, she has to travel the heavens and be challenged by all these beings, and so forth. And and I mean, the striking thing is in these texts, like the Gospel of Mary or others, it's always this fight between Mary and Peter. And Peter always represents sort of these, mainstream, straight-laced, orthodox part of the movement. Mary's always more the Gnostic, and they're always like butting heads. And Peter will say things, you're a woman, you can't teach us, and other things. And they get into arguments, but always, even in the Gospel of Mary, Peter's jealous because he says the Savior loved you more than anybody. So he just can't compete. And other texts, he says the same thing. So, it's that's what the church certainly couldn't do. So they both censored Mary, but also appropriated her as sort of their own little saint. But it's there when you look at the Gospels in different parts, for sure.
Politically, it fucks everything up because now you've got all these people running around saying Christ is king, and what you found his bloodline. What does that make him? Right. So now that shifts power in a lot of different hands that maybe they're not comfortable with. So having him have descendants and have offspring really doesn't help the church out much because it takes all of their authority away.
Yeah. But by now, God, there'd be millions of people with his DNA. It's like, what do they say? 1/4 of humanity is related to Genghis Khan.
Right.
So.
Oh, damn. What's up, Brandon?
What's up? What's up, boys? Not much. How is everyone? The stream's been great so far. I listened to it as I drove home.
Nice. Thank you.
Just got off work. Nice. Continue.
What happened to Ike? Did he get?
No, he can only stay on for. I think, like you said, he was like just jumping on for like an hour to hang out and say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's literally meant that. Yeah.
He didn't get conscripted to go to Iran or something.
No. Well, I think he's I get it. I was going to ask you something again about what about any of the Gospel of Thomas?
Well, the Gospel of Thomas, again, also found in the Nag Hammadi library, although there are remnants that were found even before in Egypt. But yeah, that one's sort of the most mystical text because it's 114 sayings, and it's these wisdom sayings of Jesus. Some do appear in the New Testament, the canonical text, but as Jesus basically starts with Thomas, if you can interpret my sayings, then you will not taste death. Death meaning, living in the material world. and you will become like I am. So you wonder if Thomas is having a conversation with himself, because Thomas in Aramaic means twin. He also refers to himself as Didymus Thomas. Didymus is Greek for twin. So you're wondering if this is this dichotomy of the higher self, the daemon, and the lower self, the eidolon, having a conversation. But this is, but even then, as mainstream scholars have said, this is the one text where you are supposed to make it your own, and it's completely personal and subjective. And that's how it was taught 2,000 years ago. That's how it is now. It probably in ancient times to today, you're reading these texts, and one of the sayings will give you that satori or that gnosis, and you'll wake up and the teacher will sort of guide you through it. It's 100% subjective, which is, again, such a rarity in most religious texts, where you are supposed to find what works for you in this text. So it's a very probably the most popular Gnostic gospel, because it's so relatable, because you find so much of the New Testament sayings and so forth, although many are modified.
Would you say that's also comparable to, like you said, like the twin, or the, dealing with that, like the HDA and the magician?
HDA?
The Holy Guardian Angel?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Direct parallel for sure.
Okay, yeah. That's what I figured we were getting. Did anybody here have any questions or anything?
I had a question.
Yeah, please go, Alexander.
So, fellas, I also want to say it is an absolute honor being here with guys who are as scholarly as you guys are. But I have a question. So I feel like we have a bunch of people in here that are across the board on this, and you kind of hit it on it earlier, Miguel. But I'm curious to hear the answer, because I look at morality different. I want to know exactly, what do you think as a Gnostic? Because I'm ignorant to what Gnostics are until I got into this chat. That's why I'm thankful that you had me in here, Nick. You are the man. I'm learning so much.
All right, cool.
But how would you consider morality in itself? Like, as a Gnostic, what does that come from? Like in the Bible, like you got the sins that you're supposed to abide by, or like I assume Buddhism has their guidelines. You have to kind of, but like inside where morality comes from, what does that mean in Gnosticism?
Well, if you have the shard of the divine and you wake it up, then you will become like God, and therefore you are the font of goodness. So then it will be, as they would say, it would be automatic. I mean, that's self-knowledge. The Gnostics keep stressing it, and that's the great dictum of the Oracle of Delphi, right? It's everything in moderation, and know thyself. To know thyself is to know God, and then everything else will take care of it if you wipe away the ignorance. Of course, that means using your brain and be able to understand ethics, philosophy, the golden rule, all that. There's a quote in the Gospel of Thomas that says, they asked Jesus, the apostles, well, should we fast? Should we follow these rules and this and that? And he says, do not hate what you do and do not lie, because everything will be disclosed before heaven. And he says, oh, that's it. Be authentic. Don't, we all have an internal compass. If we listen to our gut, where, as science has told us, 20% of our neurons are there, we'll do the right decision. And the right decision usually is altruistic, because as human beings, even from a biological level, we're here to make sure that we continue and grow as a species. And our great superpower is our empathy, our ability to work together, our ability to help the elderly so they can pass down our wisdom, our ability to cultivate our children so they can take over when we go. So we already have all these tools within us. And like I said, Gnosticism is like a form of shamanism. So it's dealing with healing, it's dealing with disclosing the spiritual world. It's dealing with different features or tasks for the tribe. The Gnostic would probably say, well, let the priest and the chief take care of their duties for the tribe so that we can all survive. So that's what I would say with the Gnostics would lean on.
In parallel with that question, and maybe to expand on that in regards to what you just said, Miguel, I wonder what you think about there being, and you mentioned this earlier, there's the Gnostics with the capital G that are, there's many different forms, many different philosophies within that. But I wonder what you think about there being Gnostics with a lowercase g, for instance, the Tibetan Buddhists or different branches of Sufism, and in Taoism, the philosophical Taoists, and so forth, different branches of different groups that might be Gnostic, if you will, with a lowercase g.
For sure. I mean, we've talked about Buddhism and Gnosticism are certainly cousins, and Sufism is a form of Islamic Gnosticism. Kabbalah is a form of Jewish Gnosticism. The Mazdakites and the Zurvanisms are a form of Persian Gnosticism. So it's there. So I would say any sort of movement that focuses on the inner world and answering the greater questions of life really is already in the Venn diagram overlapping with Gnosticism. And that makes sense, right? There's always two groups, right? And I used to be part of this other group. There's a group that is like, I got work to do. I'm going to sacrifice to the gods, give my prayers, and then everything will take care of each other on the other side. It take care of itself on the other side. I'll do the best that I can. Then there's always these groups that said, no, I want to find the big questions in life. I want to find out what's really inside of me. What's the true me? What's the kingdom within me? I want to go beyond the edges of reality and experience something greater and continue to expand my consciousness. So that, we call them the mystics, but that would definitely fall upon the Gnostics, because there's always those who are going to say, there has to be more than this reality, and this reality is just a lesser form of the true experience that we deserve.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
That was great, Miguel. Your ability to just say things like that is just on par and brilliant. Just so you know, it's like every time you it's like you've so integrated all of these things so well that it just streams out of you as questions happen and come through. So it's beautiful. So I thank you so much for your work.
Well, I've had practice. I mean, it's nice talking to you guys, because
right?
usually the answer I get is, "Sir, this is a Wendy's," but I just keep talking.
Yeah,
That's
beautiful. Hey, I was thinking about the idea of how the universal all attractor in that, like how the universe is an attraction, and then you have the entropy, which is all chaos, and it's hard to find morality within chaos. And so, do you think anybody can answer this about what we think? Do we think that then, since the universe, as it is doing, it's attracting, is actually creating a moral structure as it goes about it that lives within our DNA as humans? Does that make sense?
Like an inborn morality?
That's what I'm saying. But since we have inborn divine spark within, it would sit with that all attracting power.
I agree with something Miguel actually and I brought up before, which was kind of like what David would call the Messiah principle, like the Buddha nature is what we would call in Buddhism, like the recognition of like someone's ability to have infinite capacity for compassion and action in this world, in mind, body, and speech. So yeah, of course I do. I think it's like an inborn, like innate thing. No, probably not. But do I think that we have it as capacity and potential? Yes, but you have to also cultivate it. Like someone on the road is not just going to instantly have that capability. They have to kind of recognize that they all have it, and they have to also recognize it in other things. That's kind of why a lot of things go to shit in the world. I'm not trying to be like I'm not a black pillar person. I'm not trying to like be a black pillar. Brandon's definitely not a black pill person. I'm not trying to respond like that, but I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of people are not in tune with that inner dialogue that Miguel was talking about. And it's not like I sort of reject, I'm not saying Miguel is wrong or anything, but I kind of reject this thing of, people put the veil in front of you, or people put the oppressive, like ideological or cosmological sort of like frameworks in front of you. I think that's all choice. Personally, that's just how that's me. I'm dumb. I'm young. I'm 37, so I'm not young. But I'm just saying that I think that it's a lot of choice. And I think you're right. I think we don't live in like structures that like really make an agential man and like want us to be like really explore our consciousness and see what that means and who we are and all that, of course. And that's all true. But I also think it's a lot of choice because I think, as Miguel said, like there is like potential in Christianity, there is potential in Kabbalah, there is potential in like, I don't like Islam, but like Sufism for sure. There's a non-dual strain of Sufism from Iran, and I know that always surprises people, but there's a lot of parallel stuff. Like there's a lot going on in that whole like Central Asian religious, like you could call it like umbrella, like spider network or whatever it is, like nodes, nexions. And it's interesting because when you come sort of bring that stuff, import it to America, and I'll shut up after this, is that you kind of get something really interesting. And I don't know what Miguel thinks, but like the OTO and like, yeah, I don't agree with a lot of that stuff, like that neo-Gnostic stuff, but I think it actually to reformulate and to like give new stories and to like repackage things and to bring in Lovecraft and to bring in like Conan and Hyperborea and like all this stuff. I think it actually is interesting, and it like to bring in superheroes. I know you love that, Brandon. Like to bring in that kind of like Adam Kadmon sort of like Kabbalah 3.0, we'll call it. You know, like it's kind of retelling a story in like a way, and like for all its imperfections, at least in America, you get a choice. May not always be a great choice, but you always get a choice, right? So a lot of the world cannot say that. I can't believe I'm a boomer saying that. Like right now, like I'm one of those people, but like some places you don't get a choice though.
Yeah, I mean, all hail Crumb, I suppose. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Jung also said evil is not being able to tell our stories. If we all go on our hero's journey, we're going to come back heroic and good and moral and helping the tribe. If we let others write that story, well, it's going to go bad. And what back to what Alexander said too is where are you going to get your morality? The Gnostics were saying these bloodthirsty gods and their, as I call them, Karens and Catamites in the establishment don't have the right morality, like the Nephilim and the Watchers have corrupted the gifts of the true God. So you have to go beyond, because they look at the universe. Some really smart guy said, I'm going to make a universe where everything has to eat something, and what gets eaten has to suffer so that I can survive. And then you realize, well, yeah, that's the whole universe, right? And we're the breatharians in all of this. And and then you look at the spirit world, which what the shamans found out is like, the spirit world ain't that different. There's a lot of hungry spirits and gods out there in the immaterial world, and they're eating us too. So what's going on? So the Gnostics simply said, or the Sufis or the Kabbalists, let's go to the final frontier. Let's go to the edge of everything and find out, like Plotinus, what's going on and if there's something better. And that was their goal. And that's what drove them. And that's where they found the answers, if you would. And a lot of these answers are not even something you can speak about, like the Tao. You just, what did W.B. Yeats said? Man cannot know the truth. He could only embody it. The Gnostic said, if you see Christ, you become Christ, and everything will take care of itself. You'll be fine. You'll do well. The world will probably hate you because the status quo likes the way things are. It likes the machinery. It likes everything eats everything in this universe. It likes the temporality. It likes the tension. But there are many across the world beyond Gnosticism, Buddhists and others said there's got to be something else, and we're gonna go there. We're gonna give it our best shot.
Yeah, that's fascinating too, and it also connects to the idea of like what's the differentiation between dissonance and harmony is because then harmony is a quote.
Rosen.
To the question.
It's gonna like speed up now and catch up and be all fucked up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You gotta have
and
to
it's
repeat
back.
it.
And the idea about morality. No, just the idea that there's. Because we're trying to always figure out like the whole Abrahamic tradition is all like you can only have morality through God, right? And so this is fascinating thing, and then you get the secularists. There's like no, reality is something in and of itself human that we can try to experience, and then we get these understandings, and I think they get in the way of the true of what Plato was trying to get at, is that when we live a life that's full of suffering, virtues will stem forth out of us by the divine splendor of the forms. You come back, have to then work your way through those types of things. And so I think there's something to that dissonance and harmony basis, because it stems also in your Taoist understanding of the yin and the yang, as it moves through creating structures that we're trying to experience through metaphor, myth, magic, and game. It's like trying to understand it as a game. You get more powers based upon how much suffering you take on in the game, and then you convert that value into whatever it is you choose to put your points on. You know what I mean? So it's like we're only trying. Robert Anton Wilson talked about all as metaphor. Everything we say is metaphor.
Yeah, and religion is myth, misunderstood. And as much as I hate it, I have to agree. But what did the Hindus say? Life is a game that must be played but cannot be won.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because we can't see the back of our own head.
Yeah, true.
That's some shit, I know.
Miguel, I have a question
Go for it.
about AI psychosis and Gnosticism. Do you see sort of AI becoming sort of like this Gnostic demiurge that is now kind of being a governor between us and knowledge, and keeping us ignorant in some ways, and sort of giving us the ability to be comfortable in our ways and not question what it's telling us?
Possible, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think one reason Gnosticism has become popular is the idea of the simulation, the ability of shadow work, the inner self. But when you look at AI or the algorithms, it very similar to how the Gnostics describe the archons and these other figures. I mean, they're mechanical. They want to keep the structure, kind of like the Matrix. It's not like it's evil or good. It just wants a status quo so that it can survive. And the algorithm also in AI needs to survive too. Now, and it talks about too how the archons and the demiurge cannot create anything. All they can do is copy. They can copy the divine realm and other things, but they have no ability to create on their own. They're like, again, parasites or other types of being like that. So there are a lot of similarities, and some Gnostic texts describe them as never really truly conscious in any way, not like human beings, but they kind of know that we are superior to them. And that's the one thing that, if there's one thing that bothers them, is that they know that we're superior and how hard it is to keep us down. They try different ways to keep us down, but eventually they know we're just going to break through. So yeah, there's definitely parallels to that for sure.
Matthew, did you want to add anything or ask anything? Maybe I kind of don't want to leave you out with it, but
No, we're good. I stepped into a heavy hitters night tonight, and I just hearing all these gentlemen speak so deeply on so many different views of life and different religions and different cultures. Me coming from just a very simple Methodist background as a child, one thing I noticed is the church almost pushes the younger generation out of it, at least for me back in the early 90s. I lost my religion at a very young age, and I've kind of come back full circle to it to learn it and understand it more. But while I was on that journey, I've learned and picked up so many different things. So my question for the chat, for at least anybody who wants to answer, is why do you think that is? Why is it almost designed to push you out and go and learn all these in-depth things and gain so much more knowledge, when truly how on a conspiracy level of people looking at it, it's really that they don't want you to know and be smarter. You know what I mean? So really, what is it, the yin and yang? Do we actually have benevolent beings who want humans to be smarter and reach higher places? Is it all just in our head that we're going to reach a higher place, or I don't know. Any thoughts on that for me, guys?
I want to have a crack at this really quick.
Yes,
What do you want?
get at it.
What do you want to do? What is your will?
I was ready for the Buddhist that to say that one.
Well, that's a little.
Yeah.
It's a little Buddhist, but it's also a little like, what is your agency as a man? Like, do you want to go up the tree? Do you want to have a Merkaba journey? Do you want to study Kabbalah? Do you want to study Gnosticism? Do you want to do Mantrayana like I do every morning? Like, the name recitations, like Om Bhadrasabha Namaha. Do you want to do that like a million times? Like, what do you want to do? What is your like will? Like, do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to do like 10 million podcasts? Like, everything that you do in this world and in this life is your marga, is your journey. It really is the truth. I know that sounds really cheesy and like very boomer, and it is in a way. And I'm not a boomer, I promise, but it is true. And like all the little things and the self-reflexive knowledges that you learn and the mythologies that you learn, and maybe you'll discard it, and maybe you'll think it's all bullshit at the end of the day. Maybe you'll like not want to join any religion. That's fine. Or maybe you'll be like, oh, that crazy kid on Occult Rejects, he was talking about like Buddhism and Dharma, and maybe he had a point. So it's whatever you want to do.
One thing I just want to
There you go. I would say,
go ahead, Miguel.
yeah, I would say know thyself. It's very simple, Matthew. Who are you? Because the truth is that we're all frauds. We're all programmed robots, and we're all phonies. Who are you at your deepest level? I mean, and sometimes I would have to agree with Jung. I'd have to agree with the Buddhist idea of skandhas. There is no such thing as an individuality. We're all, as a Hermeticist would say, and Ethan could speak to that, we're all just universes itself, full of different forces, full of different ideas, shadow, trauma, past life. Our ancestors are screaming at our asses 24/7. What our parents did to us, it's all there. So what is real within us? And when you go into that journey, you'll find out what your purpose is, and it's going to be very different than everybody else. And that's where your bliss is. And that's nothing else is going to matter when you do that. What's the old saying? What's the meaning of life? To find your gift. What's the purpose of life? To give your gift away. So I think that's what it comes down to it. And that's why a lot of people get turned off with Gnosticism, because it's like, do it yourself. Nobody's coming to save you. You're on your own. You have the power, like Captain Planet or something. He's also an amalgamation of different things, right? So
yeah,
I don't think there is an individual. I don't think there is the ultimate reality, something much better, and it's within us.
There may be a lot of Gnosticism within the Zen tradition too. I'm reminded of a Zen koan that goes essentially something like this. I'll, of course, crush it. How beautiful it might be otherwise if I didn't say it. But life is about the celebration of a ship to set sail towards a destination that it will not make it to.
Yeah, life is a game we must play but cannot be won.
Yeah, and so like Miguel, you also nailed what I was going to say. The purpose is to find a purpose, right? It can be any number of things as we maneuver in the world.
One thing I wanted to even add that I kind of even with my experience with the OTO, I could say at some point just stuff going on in my own life, issues with the organization, issues with just people that I was friends with there that just brought bullshit into my life I did not care to be part of. I started going through a lot of things and questioning a lot myself. Then even started thinking like, why did I even end up at that place? But started to go back and do some more shadow work, I call it, or self-inventory, and started practicing more on my own. I really didn't go anymore, and I was already a solitary practitioner anyway. Everybody is pretty much, regardless if you're a member of the OTO, because the magic happens at home. They'll tell you that. But I kind of started questioning a lot of things and what is my will? And I literally, like, for me, I had to go back to where I started looking at, like, as a child, and things that I listened and picked up and all that stuff that shaped me. What my fucking neighbor said, what a teacher said. Well, it starts making like those. It's like the programs running in the background. You don't even fucking remember anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
24/7.
at some point, I had an experience that after all that mind fuckery trying to figure out who the fuck I am, until I had an experience, I realized who I think I am. And now I know my will. And that's how I go with it now. I know my
Yeah, and your ego may not like it. What did Schopenhauer say? Man can do what he will, but he cannot will what he will.
Yeah.
We're on a mission, as the Blues Brothers said. We're on a mission from God, and we don't know what our mission is. Our egos think it does.
Oh no, my ego definitely doesn't like it. Knows
I
it, right?
knew I'd be asking a decent question to a great group of answers here, and I just want to follow through. Miguel, you definitely confirmed one of the things I've been telling my own children for years now is that, kids, if you're going to learn anything in this world, please, for God's sakes, learn yourself. It's the one thing you need to learn more than anything, and that's what I tell everybody, especially anybody who comes to me with a problem. You got to learn yourself more than anybody who can help you do that. But I will follow through with this also. I had a trouble in my honest opinion, I think there's a design push for a lot of people to lose their religion, but I think what they didn't take in account was a lot of people were going to find their way back or find even more greater knowledge to come back to it. And just in the past few years myself, I asked God for a purpose, and he dropped things in my lap that I wasn't even prepared for. So it's find your purpose and know thyself. I definitely think that's probably if you're going to look into anything in this world, those are the two things you should probably get after. Doesn't know how much magic you know or occult knowledge or even history, just fucking know yourself.
Yeah.
So thanks for answering that, everybody. I absolutely love that.
Well,
Carry on.
I have another answer to that, though, is that when you're talking about the church, it's a good understanding to know the difference between the exoteric and the esoteric, because the answer of why do people move away from the church is because of the church is only ever giving us the hollow skin of an actual teaching. And so it's almost meant to be like what I think of some kind of Gnostic game theory, is that level is meant to be there so you can deny it until you finally find your hero's journey to search for the esoteric. And so I think it almost can be thought of not something that's negative, the church, the institution, the dogma, but something actually really important, because the church does pass along, like the Hierophant pass along the teachings of the disciplined act, which is then why through the Dark Ages you get the inversion of the flogging of the priests being something that it's like they think they sin so much that that's the way that they can burn karma or something like that. But for the individual, it's to find your way through the tunnels of the Vatican to the great teachings. And that sometimes is just stay home, read a book and meditate, or whatever that looks like to you. But I think there's something that's really important to go back to the church. But whatever that temple is, it's the holy temple of the body, as Manly P. Hall talks about his Flame of the Initiate, is that the great temple is there for us all to find, right? That's what Israel is trying to do right now. Build the third temple, but it's like they'll never actually be able to get that because they're reading it as a cookbook instead of the magical formula of like the temple of the body, the chariot up into the divine heavens. That's my.
Now I got earlier you guys were talking about the Merkaba and chariots being able to travel to go maybe possibly meet God or talk to the divine. I know I've had an experience in my life where I completely left my body, and you speaking of the body as a temple and everything, it's almost you're making me think like I entered my own temple in such a deep manner that I was within myself. But honestly, it felt like I was in outer space, soaking up all of the universe's energy all at once until I snapped out of it. And it's just, the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life, and I have yet to get back to it. It only happened once, but would you guys say doing something like that and being able to hold it attentively for much longer periods of time would be where people actually are experiencing those extreme spiritual journeys? Because obviously we're not leaving we're not taking our bodies into the middle of the center of the earth to go see.
No, that's the Merkaba. It's in your mind. It's totally in your mind. It's a journey you take. Study Kabbalah, Dion Fortune. Watch this show. We've done so many episodes on it. Like Nick has
I've
literally
been
done like
listening, Jim. I've heard
hundreds
you.
of hours,
Yeah.
and I've
Train the
personally
light
done
body.
like at least 20 hours on this
I-
show.
Oh yeah, just on
I got
Kabbalah.
a lot more listening to do, but I promise you, I hear your gentlemen's voices in my head more than my own most days.
Oh
Okay.
fuck! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate being
Well,
here.
what
and
I
hearing all
even
this
posted
stuff.
it today, a clip
Oh,
of
thank
Miguel talking. You got to go in to get out. That's what he said, right? You got to go.
That's
Oh,
Peter
I like
Gabriel. That's
Oh,
Peter
fair.
Gabriel from the Carpet Crawlers. Very Gnostic.
yeah, that's
fella.
Peter.
Oh man, I wish you
Thank
get on a
you.
Peter Gabriel kick and write something about him. That'd be great.
I was going to
Yes.
mention a similar polarity. Matthew, you had the experience of being in. I've had the spontaneous experience, and it was very much like space was in me for a moment. I was like, what was that? So just another kind of meditative experience anyway.
Yeah, I've even said I've had that experience before.
Yeah.
It gets even weirder that there's like a space within my head that I can almost like actually like almost see like a distance between like an image I'm seeing. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, it was just a
Well,
simple.
it's the astral temple. That's the astral temple. I mean, you know what I mean? It's the idea of the universe being outside of your head is almost nonsense. So we have to start thinking that our head is inside, the universe is inside our head is inside the universe. Infinite Russian dolls that go back into themselves like the snake eating its own tail. And so what they said back in the day, I think, the early Gnostic Christians, when you're speaking the Lord's Prayer, you don't speak it outwardly to a priest, you say it inwardly into your own heart. And that space in the heart is when you can reach exactly what you're talking about. And the idea is to get back to that space continually, because as Boethius learned in his Consolation of Philosophy, they can take everything. They can take your body, but they can't take your mind. As long as you have good structures, unless you're Winston, right? In 1984, finally, he is convinced 2 + 2 = 5. And that's the whole idea. And so with, I think, the magical practice, the mystical practice, finding your true gnosis is how you then have the Boethius experience instead of having the Winston from 1984 experience.
Well, I like to go back to the idea of a dream. So inside of a dream, every character in that dream is a piece of yourself that you're looking at outside of your perception, while also being inside of your perception. So when I brought up the aeons earlier, it's because there's that same quality to this one creator being as there is to all of these characters in the dream, right? So as we're looking out at these characters, they're reflections of ourselves. And so, when we're having experiences of connecting to the universe and things like that, it's not because it's out there. It's because all of that stuff is simultaneously within us.
Yeah, maybe we're just Vishnu's dream. We're in Alice in Wonderland. We're the dream of the Red King.
Yeah.
Alice in
I always
Wonderland.
like that one. It's Waking Life, right? They have that same conversation. He's talking to himself in a dream, and the dream's all like, "You don't know what I'm gonna say. What do you mean? That's that whole. And all of a sudden you're like, holy shit! And then you have that within your own dream life, and you start to understand things slightly differently. I remember when I was taking high levels of DMT, doing high levels of ceremonial magic, and in writing all my dreams down, doing all that thing, I could actually see the walls. My daytime life, my subconscious, and my dream life, they started to melt, and it was very interesting. I'm very lucky I was trained in like objective philosophy and not trusting my own bullshit, because I could see how easily someone could go crazy when all of a sudden the walls are starting to not be there anymore. And you can see over the edge of the dream life into the unconscious, into your real life. Anyway, it's fascinating. So then you got to question reality. And then it goes back to Philip K. Dick. What is reality? It's when somebody stops believing in it, doesn't go away. It's a conundrum.
I spent a lot of time being grounded in it as a kid, so I'm pretty sure I've stared at the walls long enough until it did seem like it was melting, just messing with my own vision and optics. But when I had that experience on meditation, I was kind of a baby to it. I had only been meditating for a few months. All it took was one decent meditative walkthrough of a guy with a really bad Indian accent telling me to stare at the blue light, and I wasn't even. Dude, I don't do drugs really. I've taken mushrooms a few times in my life, but I really don't need. I think I smoked 2 hits of a joint and sat down quietly, breathed. It was the breath. I'll tell you that.
Most people don't need it.
It
Matthew.
was slowing
Most people
down my
don't need it.
breath to the point where I didn't need to breathe anymore. And that's the moment I was gone. And the moment I snapped back into it is when the voice in the video came back into my ears and said, just remember the breath. And I said, oh, that's right. It feels like I haven't breathed in about 30 minutes, but it's probably only been about 30 seconds. And I took just one big deep breath and snapped right out of it. But I'll tell you, I had energy and mental clarity just that I've never experienced in my entire life. It was intense, man.
So Matthew, the whole point of that is to not do drugs. Like the whole point of to get there where you got is to not use drugs to get there. If you can get there without
Don't do
it,
drugs, kids. Drugs are
it's
bad.
better to not do it. That's called the fool's path. It's easier just to go the first time. You just walk off the abyss and then you're there.
I kind of regretted, even taking those couple puffs. But
Well, it's okay to do it and experiment, but I'm
Don't
just
regret.
saying that
Regret
if
is
you
the
can-
archons.
you
Regret
can-
is the archons.
If you can get to that place, that kind of non-abiding, we call like Diamond Thunder or Rigpa or like that reflexive, like non-dual Gnostic place, that is where you want to be. So if you can get there through meditation, which is I highly recommend this. People should get there through meditation, not drugs. But if you have to use drugs, sometimes that's fine too. I mean, we'll do as I will. But I'm just saying that you should get through meditation. That should be number one. So what you did exactly the right thing. Everything you described. It was,
the breath work and
that's
meditation.
how you do it.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
I would recommend
Pranayama,
anybody
yeah.
if you're having trouble meditating, just go stare at the wall, stare at the cracks. Make your eyes go cross. I guarantee you play with your vision enough, you lose your thoughts.
That was one interesting thing.
It's
Your
very
eyes
similar to the idea that you're supposed to
Go
you're
ahead.
supposed to stare at the tip of your nose, and so
Yeah.
So it's like the same thing, or staring at the flame. It's just staring into something. So all of a sudden, the idea is that the objectivity goes away, that this skin-like thing goes away because it's getting in the way. All your sensations are getting in the way. So you have to. The mystes comes from the terms of like basically like looking within. The mystery happens behind closed eyes, which is then why you go into caves or you shut off the lights or you go into deprivation, which are all not using drugs. But there are things that you want to do, and you want to, be able to calm the nervous system, which is why then you get into the Taoist, the Buddhist, Shaolin, Qigong, Tai Chi. These things calm the body, Hatha Yoga, and then all of a sudden you can go up the ladder to be able to experience these complete nothingness.
There's even stuff that I had wondered that I covered in the herb series that I'm doing still. There's a lot of them that affect the vagus nerve, and certain ones that were actually lower your heart rate. I'm like, a lot of these things look like it's all to kind of slowly shut you down.
Yeah, from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. You're trying to calm the body, still the mind, so you can train the will to be able to break free, and that's how you hone the light body. To be able to then use your imagination so deeply that you can just tap into the app, and then in the Astro Temple, you do your will of the universe, because you are then the craftsman, or the small demiurge, as Plato talks about it. Because you're trying to become the craftsman, taking part in that divine spark as it's integrated with the whole. Everyone should watch Lord of Mysteries. It's a Donghua. What that means is the Chinese animation and its integration, all like H.P. Lovecraft, ceremonial magic, tarot, Astro Temple, with a steampunk world, and it's brilliant. And it really go to my YouTube channel I broke it down. And so it's one of those things where you can see these concepts played out. So it's then easier for you to take them to the pillow or your altar, your temple room. That's what I think why modern myth is so important these days and age, because we need a new way to try to experience old myths that sometimes are really hard to integrate into our psyches.
I think if you guys don't mind, I think we had Miguel here quite long enough.
You better jump off soon.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nick, I got one question for you, real quick.
sure.
Those I've been listening to your herbals shows and colors and everything, and I
Yeah,
just got
sure.
to ask real quick. I love the herbal. I even went out and got a couple herbs that you were talking about on a few of those
Oh, fuck.
cranial nerve shows.
Yeah, awesome.
Fantastic information, brother. I could
Oh, it's
almost
weird
listen
shit,
to
I
those
think.
all day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
But I got a behind the scenes question for you. Is that you actually reading all of that information out, or did you
Yeah,
record it
you
with
know,
AI?
it takes too long. Oh my God, bro. I was gonna take a screenshot of what it looks like while I'm making that thing and post it. Be like, nobody knows what the fuck I do when I do this shit.
I can't, dude. You sound perfect. I'm like, he's
Yeah, it's
no
because I edit
editing all this.
when I fuck up, I edit that out and redo what I fucking read.
God damn,
Yeah,
bro. Yeah,
it's
I
really
love
sad.
it.
And I
I
make
can listen
images
to
for
this
everything
shit all
too.
day.
Actually, Miguel would have an idea what I do because he's done that before. Actually,
That's crazy.
Miguel, I mean, you've done a lot of solo stuff where you're just talking over images and stuff, haven't you? Like back in the day, didn't you used to do that a lot?
What?
Yeah, I thought a long time ago I had watched a couple of videos that you did where you kind of did some solo stuff.
Yeah, I used to have these long introductions. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, now
And
think
I
about
do
it.
a few vlogs these days. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
some
I'm
vlogs.
just saying,
these
think
days.
about doing that for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Like you would understand.
Good
like that's-
Lord.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Good Lord.
it's fucking insane.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
for some reason I like doing it. So, but yeah, no, that is me. That's yeah. You know, it's funny. I've thought about that, but I was like, there's no way you'd be able to copy me. And I don't even know if ChatGPT even does that.
Do you feel
no.
like you learn more, Nick, by doing it? Like
Yeah.
since you're reading everything out loud, it's a form of
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. No, it's a way of me even like a lot of times it's like stuff that I'm interested in, I find interesting. It's like, oh, well, I'll just make an episode out of it if there's enough there. And that's how, that's my reason for studying it and looking into it. Yeah. So it works out. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. It's was that good, Matthew? Yeah, I answered your question, right? Yeah, it's that AI. Yeah, that's fucking unfortunately me. Yeah, so we'll start to wrap it up. There's a lot of people here. So I'm not gonna have everybody repeat their stuff again. Actually, Brandon, since you came in late, I'll let you just let everybody know where they can find you.
Oh.
And Matthew too.
That's nice of you, Nick. Yeah, Magus in the Media. Go over to YouTube. Just coming out with stuff all the time. YouTube, Instagram, X. I did an interview with Mark Stavish. That's going to come out on Monday. Mark Stavish is so full of knowledge and spit and vinegar, and so that was a great conversation. And then I also conversed with Peter Mark Adams. And his book Rituals and Epiphany, I actually, that conversation actually connected so many dots that Dr. Heather Lynn has been doing. And so with Dr. Heather Lynn's Anunnaki Revelations work, and now Peter Mark Adams, his soul, Saturn, the cult, the game cult, or whatever, his two books, they're like connecting so many dots. I'm going to be talking about it a lot on streams and making videos on it. Anyway, go check out those things soon. Those are coming out. Thank you guys. Miguel, you're amazing. So I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, Dr. Heather Lynn I think she's blown me up like 7 times. I don't
Bro,
know
she's
why.
done it to me. No, she's hard. She switches things all the time.
It took me 2 years.
Can't do it,
It took the book company to actually ask me if I wanted to run. That's
No, to get her on, I had to reschedule 3 times. She's got health issues. She's doing her thing. I don't know. I don't think it's personal.
No, it's all right. Matthew, real quick, let everybody know what's up with you.
Yeah, just keep a lookout for me. I'm gonna start posting some of my videos and shows that I've done on other shows on my Hometown Prophet channel. You can find me on Instagram, Awakened Lion, Awakened Lion 29 on X. I don't post too much on there though. Yeah, it gives me the creeps being on X. Anyway, I do have a show with Trebles coming up this Sunday.
Oh, nice.
Going to be covering some connections, some dots I've been following. I did toot my own horn here, completely call the date for September 10th. I didn't know the event that happened was going to happen, but I did say that's going to be a huge day. Keep your eyes open. And I'm following more trends that led me to that before, so we're going to see where that goes. I am the Hometown Prophet, but just you don't have to take me too seriously, but I think March 15th to keep your eyes open again. But we're going to talk about some of that. And if some of you viewers out there new to the Occult Rejects, I did a great show with Nick and another huge panel of amazing people way smarter than me on my Kent State research. So go back and watch that if you will. It's pretty good. And I will be continuing that some more. I'm going to be digging into the city of Kent, Ohio itself, the mounds, and my hypothesis that it wasn't just a meeting area for the indigenous, but I believe the entire campus was probably overbuilt on top of an entire mound civilization, a huge city, if you will. Not just a couple mounds scattered throughout. I think the entire campus was a mound. So, yeah, well, I'm going to be digging into that and trying to find my smoking gun wherever I can. So keep a lookout for that.
Yeah, definitely check out that Kent State episode that he did. Matthew Lane and Kent State. That was definitely some weird bugged out shit. That was a pretty cool episode for sure. Thank you very much, Matthew. And Sir Miguel, please let everybody know where they can find all your work. Please plug your books or anything that you like to advertise.
Well, yeah, I'm author of The Occult Elvis. If you want a good exposition of Gnosticism and the truth about the king, is the documentary Epic is just amazing that just came out. Elvis is there wearing his ankh on stage. They can't hide it anymore. But yeah, my websites are thegodabovegod.com, or check out my YouTube channel, Aeon Byte, and then there's resources to social media, Patreon, other books that I've written on Gnosticism and so forth, and services. If you're looking for voiceover or some other services, check me out there. But yeah, if you're looking for Gnosticism in any sort of manifestation, I got it all there.
Thank you very much, sir. As usual, this one was great, just like the last. Sure, we'll get you on again sometime in the future. Thank you, everybody in the chat. That is what's up. Yeah, that's right. I wasn't going to have anybody plug this stuff. I was going to start having everybody do it. I just forgot.
Yeah, we'll never leave.
Yeah. I just caught myself. I was like, what? But yeah, thanks everybody in the chat. That's what's up. That's why I go live. There was a lot of people here. Some great stuff in there, but unfortunately, I got to pay attention to the guests. But again, thank you, everybody. And that's the end. Until the next one, everybody be well. Later.
Take care, guys.